Good day, everyone. We are the Group 1, and the topic that we will be going to tackle is the Roman medieval visual arts, which will be focusing only to the paintings during this era. Before we start, let's have a look at this table of contents. So we have introduction, historical background, philosophy, factors, influential persons, socio-political issues, and lastly, the prevalent artists. Ancient Roman art evolved during the expansion of the Roman Empire, which began in 509 before Christ's era. Greek cities in southern Italy and the eastern Mediterranean were influenced by Hellenization. So when we say Hellenization, it is the process through which non-Greek cultures adopted Greek language, art, architectures, and customs, often following Greek conquest or influence. And because of the Hellenization, it leads to the transfer of Greek artworks to Rome. Roman art initially focused on military, but after winning the First Punic War, it felt secure enough to develop its culture. However, since they don't have enough artistic culture, most of their works are largely imitated Greek works, and they not just copying the style, but they're also adopting a new style because of it. As the Roman Empire started, Roman painting developed its own style, with materials like wood, cloth, ivory, stone, and stucco. The eruption of Vesuvius in AD 79 preserved Pompeii and Herculaneum, revealing the rich artistic life of ancient Rome. Additionally, a division of Roman painting established into four periods or styles. And as we delve into our presentation, we will know about these four styles or periods, which are also applied to the whole Romanized territory. When the Roman Empire fell, the early Middle Ages began in 476 Christ era, marking the start of medieval art which characterized by religious symbolism and biblical narratives. In fact, this era didn't have any specific beginning or end date, but art this time begins the creation of many new styles and techniques of art. Medieval art was primarily religious with significant scenes occupying focal points in churches. Artists during this time were focused more on flat subjects but meanwhile developed into three-dimensional depictions. It is because secular subjects are introduced that shifted from rigid Romanesque formulas to realistic three-dimensional depictions and leads for more accurate portrayals of contemporary life and emotions. To conclude, both of this period, the art of ancient Rome and the early Middle Ages, profoundly impacted their periods, influencing global art and culture. Their distinct qualities and contributions have left a lasting legacy in art history. As we introduce our topic, let's now move on and delve into the historical background of Roman and medieval visual arts. Did you know? Visual arts have been seen even before Roman and medieval times. In fact, visual arts are seen even during the prehistoric era through cave paintings and rock engravings. And as time passes by, our ancestors' way of living became more civilized, causing visual arts to change into many different forms. Leading up to the emergence of the Roman Republic during 509 before Christ era, which later on called the Roman Empire. According to legend, Rome was founded by Romulus in 753 BC, which marks the beginning of its history as a city. However, the establishment of the Roman Empire has dated in 27 BC. This changed the political structure of Rome in that period. During the Roman era, visual arts had improved and developed more. Artists at that time were skilled enough to create sculptures, architectures, but most importantly, paintings. Roman paintings were presented in different styles during the different periods that arise from that era. The first style was dated back from 200 up to 60 BC. The second style emerged in the 1st century BC, and the third style was dated during the 20 BC up to 20 CE, and the last and fourth style happened in the 20 Christ era to 79 Christ era. These changes showed how Roman artists used techniques and styles in their painting to make lively wall paintings. Nevertheless, even after almost 500 years of reigning, the Roman Empire has come to an end. And because of this, some visual arts were either put to stop or became influenced by the arises of the medieval era. The timeline is now on the medieval era, or also known as the Middle Age or the Dark Age, which began just after the fall of Western Roman Empire in the year of 476 Christ era and reigned for almost 1,000 years. As I mentioned earlier, Romans focused their era in prioritizing political power, while here in the medieval era, they focus on prioritizing God. Whereas the majority of the paintings created during this time were primarily religious and influenced by different periods. These periods were specifically the early medieval art, early Christian art, Byzantine period, Romanesque period, and Gothic art period. But mostly their artwork was based on the gospel of God and God Himself. All in all, paintings at this time focus more on the representation or visualization of the scenes written in the Bible. To sum this all up, we must remember that the artists during the Roman Empire were advanced when it comes to painting as it reflects the power and civilization during the era, while artists in the medieval era focused their artwork in the religious context like the biblical scenes and saints. Both the eras influenced visual arts, specifically paintings, based on the way they lived in the past. Their artistic expression evolved and transformed over time. In the end, we can say that the culture and social structure really does have a big impact on those artworks, and it became the main factors and reasons why such visual arts were made between the eras. Let's now proceed to the philosophy happens during this era. Roman medieval visual art aimed to reflect the religious and cultural shifts of the time while serving practical and educational purposes. This era, often referred to as late antiquity and the early Middle Ages, is characterized by several key philosophical and cultural shifts. In Christianization, art increasingly reflected Christian themes and was used for religious instructions and devotion. In symbolism over naturalism, art focused on conveying spiritual meanings rather than replicating reality. In continuity and transformation, classical Roman techniques were adopted for new Christian purposes such as building churches. Didactic purpose, the art educated a largely illiterate population through religious stories and moral lessons. And lastly, in the synthesis of cultures, the integration of Roman, Christian, and barbarian elements created a unique artistic fusion. So now, let's move on to the factors of Roman medieval period. The medieval period lasted for hundreds of years and was influenced by different forms of arts, which are the early medieval period, early Christian period, Byzantine period, Romanesque period, and the Gothic art period. And these eras resulted to a remarkable artistic legacy. So now, let's know more about the early medieval art period. This was a combination of art and cultures by the influence of Greek Roman art techniques and barbarian style from Northern Europe. During this period, the sole source of art funding were the wealthy patrons in churches. For social and religious gatherings, they commissioned Christian themed paintings. The artists in this period focused on depicting saints and scenes in early classical art. They promoted the knowledge given from the Bible and made an art dedicated to Virgin Mary and Jesus Christ. The artist designed the interior of the cathedral with fresco wall paintings and decorative elements. Sculpture was a crucial art form during the early medieval period. Sculptures aimed to create three-dimensional, realistic sculptures that stood out from their surroundings. They carved intricate designs on various objects like caskets, books, panels, and doors. In addition to sculpture, artists of the time also created delicate frescoes and mosaics to decorate the interiors of churches. However, unlike the later Renaissance period, medieval paintings lack realism and expression, appearing dull and flat in style. Realistic portrait paintings were quite rare in the early medieval era, with only a few artists attempting such work. The early medieval artists drew inspiration from classical antiquity, striving to create visually appealing and meaningful art forms. Let's proceed to the early Christian art period. During the medieval period, religion held a higher status than humanity itself. It played a crucial role in the daily functioning of society. Early Christian art, also known as late Antiquity art, was significantly influenced by sacred and spiritual references. Early Christian art gained prominence after the Roman Empire adopted Christianity as its primary religion. Cathedrals and churches wielded power and influence in the political decisions of the time. This led artists to create artwork that promoted religious themes. Artists began replicating Christian idols and subjects in their painting. People abandoned past cultural influence and focused on creating images with religious themes. Printed manuscripts and mosaics depicting biblical tales were produced to educate the audience. The decoration of church and castle walls often features the use of gold leaf, gemstones, and precious metals. Unfortunately, most early Christian artworks did not withstand the passage of time. The only a few remain today. The surviving Christian inspired paintings can be found in the architecture of cathedrals and churches across Europe. The third one is the Byzantine art period. Following the early Christian art era, Byzantine art emerged as a prominent artistic style primarily developed in Constantinople within the Eastern Roman Empire. This art form was widely utilized by artists in the Eastern Roman Empire and is believed to have influenced neighboring regions such as Russia, Serbia, Bulgaria, and certain Middle Eastern states. Byzantine art was a fusion of Roman and Oriental artistic traditions, drawing inspirations from classical art while reviving antique aesthetics. The period of Byzantine art was characterized by panel paintings, wall decorations, and dome adornments, showcasing exceptional craftsmanship and talents of the artist. Emphasis was placed on creating intricate frescoes and mosaics. Byzantine artworks predominantly focus on traditional representation of Christian theology and biblical narratives with a particular emphasis on the Blessed Virgin Mary and Jesus Christ. Notable works like Madonna and Child by Bruno Nensegna exemplify the Byzantine style of painting. Despite its significance, Byzantine art was characterized by a lack of realism and naturalism, featuring its abstracts, elongated, and disproportionate subjects in flat, shadowless, and expressionless compositions. Symbolism took precedence over realism in these artworks. The architectural aspect of Byzantine art symbolized grandeur and magnificence, showcasing the skill of designers, artists, and builders. The decline of the Byzantine art period was hastened by the Ottoman Turkish invasion of the Constantinople in the 50th century, resulting in the destruction of much Byzantine artwork, although a few architectural marvels survive. Notable examples of Byzantine architecture include the Hagia Sophia in Istanbul, Turkey, and the Basilica of San Vitale in Ravenna, Italy. Let's proceed now to the Romanesque art period. Emerging around 1000 AD, the Romanesque art period succeeded the pre-Romanesque era, drawing influences from Byzantine and Roman art until the onset of the Gothic art era. Originating in France, Romanesque art spread to various regions, including Italy, England, Germany, Spain, Flanders, and beyond. The primary objective of the Romanesque art was to uphold and emphasize religious and biblical techniques, aiming to document significant events in Christianity and commemorate influential religious figures. Key mediums of Romanesque art include illuminated manuscripts, stained glass, ivory work, metal work, murals, panel paintings, and frescoes adorning walls and domes. Architecturally, Romanesque structure featured thick walls, vaulted roofs, ornate ceilings, and semi-circular arch windows, replicating simplicity and the artist's modest lifestyle. The intricate architectural designs of the Romanesque period were influenced by Roman culture, leading to a proliferation of churches and cathedrals characterized by engraved biblical scenes and sculpted figures from religious texts. Art historians posit the Romanesque art and architecture serve as educational tools, enlightening future generations about Christ's life, historical events, and more. These creations were instrumental in imparting knowledge and understanding. Notable Romanesque artwork include Apse of San Clement by Taul and Basilica di San Isidro among others. And the last factor on the list is the Gothic art period. In the 12th century, the Gothic art period succeeded the Romanesque era, lasting for around 200 years. This transition occurred during a time of societal revival and rebirth. The Gothic art period emerged and spread across European cities in the latter stages of the medieval art age. Art historians trace the origins of the Gothic era to the renovation of the Abbey Church of Saint Denis in France, marking a revolutionary change in art history with the rise of modern artists. Gothic artists introduced brighter colors and more realistic artwork, experimenting with techniques like the use of shadows, lines, perspectives, and dimension to create natural and lifelike paintings. They also explored innovative ways to incorporate iconic sculptural elements. While religious themes like Christ, sufferings, and gospel teachings remain present, other subjects such as human experiences, animals, and classical mythology gain prominence in Gothic art. The shift in the art world was largely driven by the reformation of Western Europe, including the expansion of cities, the rise of trade and commerce, and the changing mentality of people, leading to a growing interest in discovering and enjoying earthly life.
Now let's learn about the influential persons who became famous during the two era. In Roman era, art was a very important part of Roman lives. They decorated their homes, their businesses, and their temples in paintings and large murals made of tiny pieces of stones called mosaics. The Roman art had the most long-lasting legacy. Romans, like the Greeks, studied ideal ratios of human body based on the golden ratio, a geometric formula for a ratio of 1 is to 1.618. This ratio became the basis for the ideal standard of beauty, which is still used today. Several forms of Roman sculpture and painting had lasting legacies in art. They were one of the most influential people during the Roman and medieval eras. The one on the left is Philoxenus of Eretria, or Apel. He was known in the Roman period, while Pietro Cavallini was known in the medieval period. And for example of a painting of an influential person during the Roman era was the artwork of Alexander Mosaic, which is during 120 to 100 before Christ era. This artwork was a combination of different artistic traditions such as Italic, Hellenistic, and Roman. The mosaic is considered Roman based on the broader context of its time and location in relation to the latter Roman Republic. The fact that this scene was made to be viewed in the house of Roman civilians reveals that Alexander the Great was more than just a heroic image to the Romans. And for the medieval era, there was an artwork called The Birth of Jesus is One of the Beautiful, which became known in the year 1259 to 1330. The mosaic is installed in Basilica of Our Lady in Trastevere in Roman Italy. It is one of the several mosaics Cavallini created on the subject of the life of the Virgin. This mosaic of the Madonna and the Child is located near the top of the Romanesque campanile in the basilica. And the mosaic places the Virgin Mary at the center of the design with the infant Jesus on her right. They appear to be protected by the wings of angels. Joseph sits nearby and stable animals look on. We also have similar vignettes of shepherds with their flocks, the North Star, and the Latin inscription. After knowing the influential persons during the eras, let's now move on to the socio-political issues that arise during the two eras, focusing on their painting artworks. First is Pompeian frescoes and mosaics. During the creation of mosaics, painting was relegated to the work of freedmen, slaves, women, and people incapable of political and military life. At that time, society was structured around the feudal system, where land was exchanged for military service. Lords owned large estates, vassals managed portions of these lands, and serfs worked the land in return for protection. System. Also, the rigid class system includes nobles, clergy, and peasants. Social mobility was limited and one's social status was largely determined by birth. The frescoes and mosaics of Pompeii provide insights into daily life, social hierarchies, and issues such as slavery, class differences, and the roles of women. The House of the Veti, for an instance, contains numerous depictions that reflects the lives of freedmen who have gained wealth. And for the second artwork, which is entitled Allegory of Good and Bad Government, made by Ambrogio Lorenzetti, which is created in the year 1338. The meaning of the painting is a reminder that good government is characterized by justice, concord, peace, and wisdom, while bad government is animated by division, avarice, fury, vainglory, and even tyranny. When a good government reigns, all is well. And about the painting, this is painted in the Palazzo Pubblico in Siena. This series of frescoes is a notable example of art reflecting social and political issues. It vividly contrasts the effects of good and bad governance on society, depicting prosperous and peaceful communities under good government and war-torn, desolate landscapes under tyranny. And for the last artwork, we have the Bayeux Tapestry. This art tells the story of the events surrounding in conquest of Englandine by the Duke of Normandy. Crossing the sea in long ships, long cavalcades on horseback, shields and coats of mail, and fantastic creatures and battlefields. All the details of a great medieval epic unfold before your eyes. As we are about to end, let me add another artist who doesn't only became famous but also became prevalent during the Roman and medieval era. First is Hieronymus Bosch, who was a Dutch painter from the late Middle Age known for his fantastical, often surreal depictions of religious themes and landscapes. His works are filled with intricate details and symbolism, often portraying moral and religious allegories. The Garden of Eden is one of Bosch's famous paintings depicting the biblical garden as a lush, mysterious landscape inhabited by a variety of strange creatures and figures. It's renowned for its rich symbolism and imaginative composition, offering viewers a glimpse into Bosch's unique worldview and interpretation of biblical narratives. Second is Jan van Eyck, was a Flemish painter from the Northern Renaissance, known for his meticulous attention to detail and mastery of oil paintings techniques. He was one of the pioneers of the early Netherlandish painting style. The painting is rich in symbolism with various elements reflecting themes of marriage, wealth, and spirituality. The Arnolfini portrait is one of Van Eyck's most famous works, depicting the Italian merchant Giovanni di Niccolao Arnolfini and his wife in a domestic interior. It's celebrated for its realism, intricate symbolism, and use of light and perspective. And for the third artist, we have Duccio di Buoninsegna, was an Italian painter from the late medieval period known for his contribution to the Senese school of painting. He was one of the most influential artists of his time and played a crucial role in the development of Italian Renaissance art. The Maesta altarpiece is one of Duccio's most significant works, created for the Siena Cathedral. It is a monumental altarpiece depicting the Virgin Mary surrounded by the saints and angels, with a scene from the life of Christ on the predella below. The painting is celebrated for its elegance, delicate brushworks, and spiritual depth, exemplifying the Byzantine influence style on the Senese school. And for the conclusion, the Roman and medieval visual art period was a time when art changed a lot. At first, the Romans were inspired by Greek art, but they developed their styles with colorful frescoes and stories from myths. Later, Later in the medieval times, art became more religion, using symbols and teaching stories. We learned that artists in this period had to deal with how the society was structured, like who had the power and the conflicts between the churches and the rulers. They also faced wars, economic changes, and cultural shifts that influences their art. Famous artists like Philoxenus of Eretria, Pietro Cavallini, Hieronymus Bosch, Duccio de Buonsegna, and John van Eyck created beautiful artworks that we still admire today. Their paintings, mosaics, and manuscripts reflects the diverse and meaningful art of the time. In summary, the Roman and medieval visual art period shows how art evolved through different styles and meanings, influenced by religion, culture, and society. It left a lasting impact on the history of art, showcasing the creativity and stories of that era.